What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Shiv, and today we're going to be doing another advanced guide. Well, today we're going to be talking about the F-94d Starfire. I'm going to tell you right now, this advanced guide feels a little bit, maybe premature, and I'm going to say that right now, because we haven't done the full upgrade path on this. As you can see here, we haven't gotten the engines, but as you can also see, we got the most important parts of the plane, the Vulcan and the air-to-air rockets, which to me, that's pretty much all you really need. While yes, the extra bit of speed is really helpful and a little bit more boost, etc., acceleration is very helpful, I found that I'm able to do pretty well with it without having those. So I wanted to take some time, talk about a build that I've been working on that I found to be relatively good. It doesn't fall into the whole prefab constructions that you find on the cheat sheet, and I've just been having a blast with this plane. Alright, so let's get to this. Now initially, when I started thinking about going and getting the F-94d, it actually was spawned out of a debate discussion that actually we talked about in some previous videos. About how ground attack planes were too OP and that they need to nerf them somewhat and, completely negate the hell out of their rear gun and make it blah, 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 which I disagree with because there are planes specifically designed to actually kill them. And I mentioned this plane because I've had this plane kick the living crap out of me in an IL-40 and in a 1099. So I figured, hey, if I'm going to talk about these planes as being a counter to it, I really should play these planes and actually show why it's a counter to it. So, here we go. So I grinded up the path to get this plane, and I'll tell you right now, the grind was a little annoying, but I came to discover some really cool awesomeness about some of the previous planes in this line that made me really like the American multi-role cannon line. I mean, I just downright love it. It is just an awesome line when played correctly. So when I got to the 94D, I was a little bit apprehensive. Like, okay, I really loved the F-2G. I mean, I thought that was a great plane. I thought that was like the creme de la creme of multi-role. And I was afraid that this plane wouldn't be a really good follow-up to it. And initially, my opinion of the plane was, wow, this plane is going to take a little bit of time to get used to. All right, so let's get to it. When you look at the F-2G, hold on a second here, there's something that you're instantly going to notice here. Well, it has 11-second 360 and a rate of roll of 130. All right, airspeed-wise, it can get up to 720. So when you get over here to the F-94D, that's totally different. Now you're talking 13 seconds. 13 seconds is huge, ladies and gentlemen. That is really sluggish in terms of turn. Rate of roll of 110 is like, what the hell? That is crappy. And then the speed of 885 initially is not that great of a performance boost, right? So you're going, what the hell, man? Now you do get a significant amount of boost, about 20 seconds of it, so you can kind of use that to your advantage. But one of the biggest advantages I've found in it is actually the optimum altitude of 1800. Now this is about the same as, say, the BVP 212. Matter of fact, it's exactly the same. No, actually, I believe that's at 2K, as a matter of fact. Hold on. Yeah, it's 2K. So it doesn't have nearly as much maneuverability or altitude or speed, but this is also fully upgraded. When I have this fully upgraded, it's actually faster than the 212, so keep that in mind. But even still, with it in the slightly slower state, it is a phenomenal plane, all right? So let's talk about a couple things here that I think are really, really important. So we're going to start with the upgrades. Okay, so if you get this plane, I'm going to tell you right now, first thing you're going to want to get are the air-to-air rockets. Now, I've heard people argue, it's like, no, you want to get the Vulcan first. No, actually, you don't. The air-to-air rockets allows you a greater amount of flexibility than the Vulcan does, all right? You'll be able to take on heavy fighters head-on, boom, blow them out. You'll be able to use them to take out ground attack planes, boom, blow them out. Anybody who comes head-on to you, boom, dead. All right, so the air-to-air rockets are a priority, especially if you're rocking Rocketeer, which we are. So for me, that was a no-brainer. It's only 24,000, boom. Then comes the next long grind, getting to the Mark 12 20 millimeters. Now this is like 52,000 experience you got to grind out. That's kind of annoying. That took me a day or so to grind that out. But once you get this, it's actually pretty decent. You're getting 820 effective range, Your damage is now 180 per gun, which brings it to 720 total damage. It's actually pretty good, right? The rate of fire suffers quite a bit, but in comparison to the previous iteration, it's actually pretty decent. Now, once you get done grinding that, you're going to want to get to the Vulcan, because this is the big bad voodoo daddy that everybody wants. 800 damage per second. Now, that's 80 more than the previous gun system. Rate of fire is dramatically higher, but remember, guys, you only got one gun. All right, so look at this. It's 3,000 rounds a minute versus 600, okay? You get 4 of these, so if you really want to give it a comparison here, this is basically rate of fire of 2,400 versus a rate of fire of 3,000. So you're getting a higher rate of fire while only having a single gun, if you really want to look at it in perspective. So yes, this is still technically a 4-gun system, but you have a higher rate of fire, and thus it adds up quite nicely. All right, that's the best comparison kind of thing I could possibly do. All in all, the Vulcan is just downright awesome. All right, whatever you think of it, yeah, you're sacrificing 4 for 1. I don't give a damn. All right, it makes up for it quite nicely. It feels like you're hitting with 6 versus 4. That's the best way I can put it. It feels like you're hitting with it more than you are with 4. That's how I looked at it. Now, obviously, after that, you're going to go down the engine path, and there you go. Now, let's talk about equipment, because this is actually a really important thing. If you look at the guide, right, it says go engine tuning, lightweight airframe, and then it kind of leaves it up there. You could either take the improved covering or gun sights. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I understand why the gun sight one is there. I'm not a huge fan of using gun sights on anything that isn't machine guns or 30 millimeters or higher, but I kind of get why they'd say that. But the regular gun sights just won't do, okay? And let me show you why, okay? So 15% fire accuracy with this improved radio sight. That's not bad, right? But the only way that that's actually really good is when you get to the crew skills, right? All right, so you got that 15, and then you're also going to add 5 more right there, and then another 5 more there, and that's not bad. So what you end up getting there is now 25% reduction in dispersion. That's actually pretty good, right? But you have to get these 5 points of pilot skills in order to really benefit from that. But again, I don't think it's overly needed. All this is going to do is allow you to continuously do greater amounts of DPS at a farther range. If you actually hold your trigger until about 600 range and then fire, it's about going to have the same effect. I actually did test this out a bit with the Vulcan and using both of these and using the radio scope, and to be perfectly honest, guys, it was not overly that good. I found that I was able to get more consistent damage at further range, but once I hit about 600 meters, it was the exact same. So again, not overly that good. I would much rather invest in other things as a priority before doing that. So for me, the whole scope thing just was not advantageous. But instead, we went with every bit of maneuverability we possibly can, as well as engine tuning. Now, I know what you're going to say, Shiv, that's how you set up a light fighter. Yes, you're right. It is exactly how you set up a light fighter. And if you look at the crew skills, we also have it set up for agility. And here's why, ladies and gentlemen. And I've done the math on this. All right, so we have an average turn time of 360 per second down to 13 seconds. Okay, that's horrible. In comparison to like every other plane in that tier, only like heavy fighters, bombers, and ground attackers are even more sluggish than you are. That's not overly that good. That's not overly that good at all. That's going to mean some of your combat in the game against other things is going to suffer quite dramatically. So in order to rectify this, I went with a complete agility build. And because of that, you're able to actually lower your average time to turn from 13 down to about 11.6, which again, not overly that great, but it starts getting it a lot more comparable to some of the other ones that are out there. And then you throw in things such as flaps, and it can definitely create that little bit of a window that you're going to need in order to survive battle. So if you're playing with a flight mate, etc., you're going to be able to at least turn enough to kind of placate your enemy to where your wingman will be able to come in and possibly help and draw them off. And I've had this happen a couple times in game, and it's worked actually pretty damn good. The other advantage to doing this is being able to chase some of the other heavy fighters that exist in the game. The 262 is not very nimble, so being able to outmaneuver it and always get that proper angle on it as soon as possible before it can run away, huge advantage. You look at the American line, again, not very nimble, same basic principle. You look at the British line, not very nimble, same basic principle. And so it just allows you to not waste as much time, you know, getting that proper angle. And to me, that's the important thing. More maneuverability helps lead to greater amount of DPS while using, you know, the Vulcan. And to me, that's a big win. Now, I could have gone a different route. I really could have. I could have gone by the standard checklist thing, and I would have had like a little bit more life, like 5% more, which is basically 525. And, you know, it just didn't really seem that much of a big deal for me. All right, so we went with the agility build. Now, we also took Expert Rocketeer. This should be a no-brainer. Right, guys? Should be absolutely a no-brainer. We're using barrage rockets similar to the BVP 210 and 212. So having that Rocketeer is going to make them a little bit more advantageous. And the fact that the American rockets hit for so much more is just downright disgusting. I'm not even kidding when I say they hit for so much more. Let's take a look at this, right? All right. 400 per rocket. So each rocket has a damage potential of 400 damage and has an explosion of 30 meter radius. Okay, well, 150 and 25 blast radius. That's not very good. That's not very good at all in comparison. So yeah, having these rockets being a little bit more effective seemed like a good idea, and it plays well into the strategy of the whale hunter. Okay, so I've come to the conclusion that playing this plane is pretty much the embodiment of Captain Ahab in World of Warplanes. Your whole principle is to attack bigger targets. You go for the bomber. You go for the ground attack. You go for the heavy fighter. These are your primary targets of opportunity. These are the ones you want to focus down because they are the ones that you can easily outmaneuver. They're the ones that have the biggest cross-section for your gun to completely destroy. And they're the ones that generally are going to get hit more frequently by your air-to-air rockets. All right? And it also makes for a really good anti-bomber wing plane. I'm not even kidding. This plane with the Vulcan completely shuts down bomber wings. You could solo clear bomber wings and then head to the next bomber wing and kind of push it back on your own with this plane. I love this plane. I think it is just downright amazing. Alright guys, well, like any advanced guide, we're going to now move on to the video footage where we get to talk about the intricacies and do a little bit of stop action, talk about it, and so on. So let's get to that now, shall we? Alright, so here we are in the F-94d. Now, if you look at the map, we've got 4 garrisons and 1 military base. Military base is the one that shoots out the rocket. Now, in general, as a multi-role, you want to go to that center point, right? Well, we're not exactly your traditional multi-role. We are an air dominance multi-role, which means we're really good at shooting down targets in defense or going after the big targets. And specifically, this plane is the Captain Ahab of World of Warplanes. It thrives on shooting bigger targets. Bombers, ground attackers, heavy fighters. It looks for those. Those are the most ideal targets for it because its weapon systems are designed specifically to interact, counteract, and destroy those those types of planes right there. Now, this doesn't mean it can't kill multi-roles. It doesn't mean it can't kill fighters. It does. But those planes generally have a little bit more of an advantage over it than the other 3 that we mentioned before. So we want to focus on taking out those primary 3 targets. All right, so because of this, we're not going to head to the middle because the middle is going to be the place where everybody is fighting. So we're going to have a bunch of fighters. We're going to have a bunch of heavy fighters there. So being able to make nice, clean strafe runs and, you know, pick out targets that we're going to focus down, it gets a little bit more difficult and we expose ourselves to a great amount of damage. This is not ideal for us. So we're going to play it a little bit more cautiously and we're going to play it a little bit more intelligent. All right, so here we go. So we're going to head to the garrison here to the south. We can already see a heavy fighter over it on the mini-map, and there it is right up there. And it's a good bit away. It's almost 3K away, but we're going to climb to altitude here. And here we've got this other one coming in. Now this other one is much closer. Okay, so here we have an interesting little situation. All right, we've got a closer target here at 18,699, but it's not quite heading towards us, all right? So we're literally gaining on it slow. And then we have another target that's further away that seems to be banking around and coming in for an attack pass. So which one do you go for? Well, if you've watched any of my other advanced guides, you know that I am always looking to go for the one in the rear that could possibly do a strafing pass on us. Why? Because allowing something like a 410 to get on your tail is pretty much a bad idea. And taking on a heavy fighter in a head-on, in most cases, tends to be a really bad idea, unless you're an F-94d or, say, a BVP-210 or the BVP-212 or even the 215 in some cases, but whatever. So, yeah, we actually want to take it on head-on. The combination of our front gun and our air barrage rockets are going to basically turn his front-on attack on its nose and completely bloody it. So let's go to that. All right. So here we are. We're lined up for this head-on attack, and boom. Here we are at 1 kilometer, give or take. Now, we could actually fire our barrage rockets at it. Will it do anything? Absolutely, probably not. Because the way barrage rockets work is they fire off a salvo, like a shotgun. All right, the further away you are from a target with a shotgun, the greater the spread's going to be. So the likelihood you're going to hit where you want it to hit, not very good. So distance is kind of a factor with these rockets. All right, while yes, we can hit things at 1 kilometer with it, it's better to bring it closer, you know, around 500, 400, 300, around there to guarantee an attack. Now, in the BV-212, I said, hey, if you've got a heavy fighter there, double tap the R. And this is something that is ingrained into me, so any plane I have that's got air barrage rockets, I'm always going to do that. You don't have to with the 94D. I'm telling you that right now. The 94D individual rockets hit at 400 damage versus 150 of the 212. So, yeah, it makes a little bit more sense not to do it, but I'd rather err on the side of caution here than have a 410 run right down my throat. So let's get to this. So we fired off some shells and kaboom. We did 125 just with the gun before the rockets kicked in. And those rockets just basically obliterated the hell out of that plane. All right, so we're looking for our next target. We've got this here. And I see that 410 passing by. There's no way we're going to be able to get it any sort of advantageous on the 109, so we're going to ignore it. So instead, we're coming back in on this 410. This is, again, playing to the strength of the plane. We are Captain Ahab. We hunt the big whales. Now, right there, you're seeing some trigger discipline. We're not just holding it and pulse firing. All right? That is where you want to go. Now, the further away you are from the target, the less likely you are to hit it. Even though, yes, the optimum damage starts at about 820 here, you want to get closer to ensure those shells are going to actually hit. There is spread when it comes to guns, including the Vulcan, okay? While I find that it is manageable in many regards, there are some people who believe that you should probably use a gun sight with it. I am not one of these people. If I was to use a gun sight with it, it would be the radio sight that you could get out of the special event right now because that's 15 versus 10. And then, of course, if you're going to go down that route, you're also going to want to spend a lot more time in the plane, training up your crew and getting yourself some of the, you know, sharpshooter and marksman and whatever in order to ensure that you're getting the best possible or the least possible spread you possibly can, which if you combine all those together is actually a pretty significant amount. It would basically turn that gun into a freaking rapid-fire laser for all intents and purposes. But as it stands right now, it's already pretty damn tight. Alright. So again with the pulse firing, and we're starting to hit a lot more consistently, and we just completely neutralize it. Crits started kicking in nicely. That's one of the other advantages of the Vulcan. Because of the massive amount of shells that are hitting in a quick succession, it seems to crit a little bit more often. So universal ammo, definitely a plus here. Alright, so we're heading to the middle. We've got 3 visible targets right now. There are more, and there's that 4th one, another bomber. So we've got 2 heavy fighters and 2 bombers. Okay, so here's where we're going to make a kind of situational mistake. We're able to recover from it, but it is definitely a mistake. Alright guys, 9 times out of 10, you always want to take out the biggest threats first. Heavy fighters would be the biggest threats, though bombers are the biggest of whales. So sometimes that kind of can get a little confusing when you go, no, I must kill the bomber. The reality is, take out the heavy fighters if you get the opportunity. Don't forsake yourself by ignoring a heavy fighter. That is horribly bad. Now, both these heavy fighters are ME-262s, and in general, the bots that play them tend to suck. And one of them is really low. Now, as you can see here, he's coming off to our side, and if you look at the mini-map, it's looking like he's going after another heavy fighter. Down on the deck, we've got this RB-17. He's about 200 meters closer, and then we got another one that's like also relatively close as well. So you have to make a decision here. And we make the wrong decision. We should have gone for the 262 initially. Well, he was so low to death, if we killed him in the zone, it would help reset it. It would have made our life 10 times easier. But instead, we decide we're going to hunt the white whale. Alright, and here's where this backfires on us. Now that heavy fighter is coming in, and I start hearing the incoming shells, and we're able to kind of duck out of it. And we're going to roll in onto this RB-17. Now, I want you to look at the lead we have on it, alright? And this is actually a pretty decent lead for the range. If we're aiming too far ahead, we could easily move it back in. But as we're approaching quicker, because he's turning in on us, we have to rectify this really, really quick in order to get any significant damage on him. Alright, right there we did about 300 damage. Now, we could have gotten more, but our aim was a little off in the beginning, so kind of cost us a bit. And you also notice we were doing way more damage the closer you got because less of a dispersion for it to possibly miss. Now, that did not seem like a great amount, only 300 damage. Well, I mean, 300 damage on a fighter is insane, but 300 damage on a bomber, that's really not that much. And again, because we were closing across of each other, we weren't going to get that the greatest amount of possible potential damage on it. So there's that. So now we're going to use some energy fighter mechanics, basically making our turns while we're doing a dive. That way we're regaining energy and not just losing it and being forced to boost through everything. Alright, we're going to also flap a bit while boosting to kind of flip us up around. And here we are, we're gaining our angle on it, and we should be able to get a whole lot more damage. Now, our trigger discipline went to crap there, let's be honest. Alright, that heavy fighter just took a huge chunk out of us, set us on fire. That is not good. We got this rear gun shooting at us as well. Boom. Alright, now even though our trigger discipline was really crap there, you'll notice that the guns cool down pretty damn quickly. Alright, if this would have been like a tornado or anything of the normal gas-powered cycling systems for guns, oh my god, it would have taken forever for that. But because it's the Vulcan and those chambers are constantly spinning, it cools down pretty damn quickly. So, it is what it is. Alright, so they took the point. We killed their bomber. And now I'm thinking, you know what? That 262 has made 2 attack passes at me. He is not ready to let me go, so he's going to be coming back in again. Alright, so remember what I said about head-on passes. We always have the advantage here. A combination of our rockets as well as our Vulcan will do some amazing things. So we basically unload everything on him to make sure we get the kill. Our gun was more than enough, so that's kind of a wasted rocket barrage, but you know, sometimes shit happens. Alright. So I'm looking at this other 262. I want to get him. It's now going to be 2 heavy fighters attacking him. And lo and behold, we have these bot heavy fighters, the air defense heavy fighters that just popped up here. Well, guys, we really need to get this capture point back because this is an offensive capture point, and having it can really make a world of difference. So we need to do whatever we can to possibly ensure that we get this. So obviously going after something that is almost 2k away versus something that is less than a k away. The thing that's 2k away isn't in the zone. These are. So our priority now becomes these air defense heavy fighters. Alright, so we're closing the distance. And we're putting some damage on it. Again, trigger discipline. Alright. Now, as you notice there, we killed that, and we had to get onto this other target. So we bank hard to the left, and we're going to be banking hard to the right while climbing in order to get right on the tail. Watch this. Alright. Situational awareness is really important. Now you notice there how quickly he died? Well, again, going back to what I was saying, the closer you are to the target, the more potential damage you're actually going to do to the plane. So yeah, while the other one, it took us a little bit to kill him, as we got much closer to this one, he just went kaboom, obliterated very, very quickly. Like, there's 1,000 different explanations I could give to you. Actually, there's like 6, but the reality is, the closer you are, the less dispersion, the more shells are actually making impact, etc., 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 and the more possible damage you're actually dealing. Boom. Alright. So we took him out. There's no more defensive fighters here, so staying in the area doesn't seem like a good idea. There was a multi-roll on the deck, but he just died. It is what it is. So we're going to start heading over to this northern area here. We're going to try to stop them from taking it, because if they take that, they'll then have a cap lead on us. So we're going to be going after this bomber, but I see this fighter, and he is coming in. And let's take a look at this. This fighter is well below half. He's got some good speed and better maneuverability than I have. So it's advantageous to us to basically unload as much as we possibly can and take him out. And again, our damage at range, not that great. Once he got to about 500 though, boom, obliterated. Alright. So now here we are on the RB-17. And you notice that we're a little bit sluggish up here, right, guys? Okay, so here's the thing. As you get above 2,700 meters in this plane, your performance actually drops significantly. You're losing a lot more energy from your engines, your maneuverability drops significantly, and you're just generally nowhere near as good as you are below that. Seriously, if you're below like 2,700, the plane performs great. But as you get above 2,700, you really start noticing its lack of performance. I mean, we're under 300 kilometers an hour right now. So as we're going to the next target, it's going to have to be in a dive. We're going to have to use energy gaining techniques, you know, combination of dive and boost, to build up our speed to where we can actually do anything. All right, so we know the target's there. We're going to be panning down, and we're going to rotate with the plane coming in, and we are now back above 400. And we're perfectly set up on the rear here. We're at about 600, and our guns are just eating into him. Now, he is getting away from us, so our damage output is suffering from it significantly. And we don't get the kill there. That fighter actually got the kill, which, you know, I'm okay with. Alright, so now we're going to rotate down, and we've got this 262. Player 262s tend to be really, really smart, but bot ones tend to be really, really dumb. Alright, little quick burst there, kaboom, he's dead, and we took the point. Now, we have a significant capture lead on them, and that's good. That is really good. Alright, so here we are coming on the Law 9. Now remember, guys, we're doing 663 kilometers. He's probably, or kilometers an hour, he's probably doing something like 300 to 400, which is really starting to put us into that approach speed of 1,000 kilometers an hour. This is why when I'm in this plane, I see something that's 2K off, I don't ignore it, okay? I never ignore it, because I understand how, like, speed mechanics work in this game, and 2K is not that far away. Alright, so we're getting into gun range here. This guy is really low. We're just going to open up on him and kill him. And again, at distance, we're getting 1-2 hits, as it got within 600. Ring. So there's another talking point. While this thing can hit at 800, all right, the only things you really want to be engaging at 800 with your gun is generally going to be larger targets. Ground attackers, bombers, heavy fighters, and even with the heavy fighters, you're not going to get nearly as many hits. But the larger the target, the greater the range you can actually fire and hit more consistently, all right? Anything like multi-role, heavy fighters, you're going to want to try to hold back till about 600. Yeah, that means you're losing out on potential damage, but it also means you're not overheating your guns as much. And if you're playing this like an energy fighter and basically flying through a strafe pattern, you know, hitting a target here, hitting a target here, hitting a target here, you know, and trying to basically cause significant damage to a group of things to where the rest of your team can then come in and possibly finish them off, there's some advantageous things about that. So that is something. However, in general, it won't really matter too much. So, but just letting you know, most of your damage is going to come from about 600 meters or less with this Vulcan. All right. So we're coming in. We see this 1070 here. And again, ground attacker is bad. But I also see a Spitfire. Now, I have to take the Spitfire. Spitfires are nasty. And this is a player Spitfire. So he would definitely love to get on me. Now, I didn't get the kill. I didn't even get a hit on him. It looked like AA actually took him out. But that allowed us to basically come in at a nice approach here. And as you can see, we're at about 599. We're firing on him. And guys, that was 700 damage on that pass right there. Now imagine if we were to start hitting him at 820, right? We would have easily have done over 1,000 damage, guys. So yeah, the Vulcan is strong enough that it could do 1,000 damage per strafe on a ground attack plane. So what does this mean? Well, against tier 8s, pretty much 2 passes obliterates the hell out of an IL-20. Against a IL-40 at tier 9, however, you're talking about 2.5 to 3 passes total, which again is not bad. However, remember, you have your air-to-air rockets, so if you're going up against the IL-40, those are going to play really, really helpful. Now, again, shooting rockets at ground attackers can be hit or miss. You know, there's lots of different variables on it. If they turn after you fire, yeah. Lots of things. Dodging rockets is actually a thing in this game, all right? But dodging a Vulcan, not so much. So 2.5, 3 passes really is not that much if you think about it against, say, an IL-40. So, yeah, this plane actually does really good at shitting on them. And I'll tell you right now, player IL-40s tend to cry when you attack them with the Vulcan. I've had people call me a hacker because of it. That made me laugh so hard. So, yeah, there's that. Alright, so let's continue on. Alright, so we did 700 damage to it before, and we're going to give it a decent amount of space, and we're going to rotate around. We're going to burn off some of this energy here, because we were going pretty fast there. Alright, so we just hit air superiority pretty early on, I might add. Alright, and we finish him off there. Now, we've killed one of everything except for a multi-roll. And here we go. And that's a player multi-roll, so let's go ahead and take him out. And look at how much damage we did right there. Guys, that guy was at full health. He's now down to 152. That's a significant amount. That is well over 300. Alright, so we're going to rotate in. And finish him off. And there's the Lambert, ladies and gentlemen. Alright. Now, we've killed well over 10 planes in one life. We got the Lambert, and we got the McCampbell, and that's a big takeaway there. All right, so 8,750 combat points, 970 mastery. We got a Rocketeer, we got the McCampbell, we got the Lambert medal. We did everything we were supposed to do, and we did it quite nicely. So let's continue this on, because while these stats are important, they're nowhere near as important as some of the other stats that we really need to take a look at to kind of really evaluate a plane's performance. All right, so stats in this game are broken down in multiple categories here. You know, how many you actually killed, assists, how much damage you did, how many, you know, combat points or capture points you got on the attack and defense. All these things actually really matter, and it's important that you pay attention to them. All right, so this is loading up now. Poof. All right. So here we go. 340 capture points received. Woohoo. We got that in the attack only, because it's the only thing it actually counts there is on attack. I really wish it would also count defense. It would make playing a multi-role a little bit better, to be perfectly honest with you, because a lot of times you are kind of forced to defend one area, and you can't always run off to the attack. When you get to tier 9, it gets a little bit easier, because you've got that speed to transition from point to point to point, a little bit easier, but in general, I think it's something that needs to be fixed about the class grade system, but that's just me. And we got 80 capture points in defense, which put us to 420, which is how we were able to achieve the Lambert, because Lambert is 400 capture points. Doesn't care if it's attack or defense. All right. Now, we were able to capture 3 sectors. Awesome. We had 1 assist. Okay. But we took out 12 aerial targets, and we did 5,711 damage. Now, guys, there were no bomber wings in this game. Not a single one. If there had been bomber wings, we could have easily skyrocketed this damage to aerial targets well above 10,000. I've done it repeatedly. Okay, that's one of the strengths of this plane. It shits on bomber wings, left and right. And because of that, when you look at damage to aerial targets, you have to take that as a grain of salt. It's like, were there bomber wings? If yes, then not really as impressive. Were there no bomber wings? Okay, cool. Then that's actually pretty damn impressive. When you look at like some of your play as a multi-role or fighter, you may not get above 3,000 many a times, all right? You may not get there. So hitting 5 is actually pretty impressive. And the reason why we hit 5 is because we were going after the whales. We weren't trying to go and fight every single fighter and multi-role out there. We were specifically targeting bombers, heavy fighters, and ground attack planes. These are the big HP planes in the game, and we were focusing on them. All right, and because of that, we did a significant amount of damage because they have high health values. You look at like RB's 17s, if it's player controlled, it's almost 2,000 points. You look at the NC's 1070, if it's player control, it's around like 1,600 some odd life or 1,800 life, something like that. IL-20s, 1942. If you look at the IL-40, that's like 2,500, etc., etc., etc. Most of your heavy fighters at this tier are also around 600-700, if not more. Your air defense heavy fighters, those are like 550, 600, depending on which one it is. So, I mean, yeah, we were putting a lot of damage out on these bigger targets that have higher health pools, and thus we're able to get this bigger damage to aerial targets, which, by the way, guys, that actually does factor into combat points. Not nearly as much like a 1-to-1, but it does help towards that. So being able to do almost, I mean, that's pretty close to 6,000 is actually really impressive for a multi-role fighter. And of course, you know, if you take off the 400 damage we got off that one rocket that impacted, then that's still 5,311, which is still pretty impressive if you ask me. So yeah, now we didn't die that entire match because we were playing very, very smart. If you look at the credits we made, we had almost 90k there. We had 5,238 experience, and we generated 261 free experience off that. So that's actually pretty decent, guys. That is actually really decent. Now, if we had performed better, if, you know, we broke 10k on combat points, we killed more planes, yeah, that would definitely be way more advantageous. And I'll tell you right now, I have actually pushed an ace in this plane. So yes, it is very feasibly possible. Sometimes very annoying, but it is feasibly possible. You can carry to some degrees with this plane, but as a whole, not really. So where does this plane really fit in? Well, guys, like I said repeatedly through this, it is a whale killer. So if you're playing in this plane and you're in that tier 9, tier 10 brackets, guess what you're going to see a lot of? Players trying to exploit the fact that player GAs in those tiers tend to have the greatest advantage. Well, guess what? You now have a plane that craps all over that. So anyway, guys, that's going to be all for this video. I hope it helped. I really do. If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you like these videos, please like, subscribe. Let me know that you care. And again, my build is very unique and specific to my playstyle. Some people may have a different build. That's fine. If you want to discuss that, go right ahead in the comment section. I love having these discussions. Anyway, till next time, it's Shiv saying stay safe, have fun. May RNGs bless you. I'm out.
Strikes on our complex. Try to neutralize the enemy military base. Receiving reports about rapidly deteriorating weather conditions. Support will be unable to reach you. Do you read me? Over. Way to go!